The morning light filtered through the lace curtains of my old farmhouse, landing softly on the mahogany box I'd kept at the edge of my dresser for years. It was my 70th birthday. The house was quiet, too quiet. My sons had both promised to call, but I already knew they wouldn't. They rarely did anymore. As I reached for my teacup, something caught my eye, an envelope tucked under the old music box that had belonged to my husband, Robert. His handwriting was unmistakable. Open on your 70th birthday. Don't tell the boys. For a moment my breath caught. Robert had passed away 7 years earlier. Even now I could almost hear his soft laugh, smell the faint cedar scent of his flannel shirts. My hands trembled slightly as I turned the key that was taped inside the envelope, small and brass, engraved with the letter R. The note inside was brief but deliberate. The truth is waiting where it all began. You'll understand when you see it. The words pulled me back decades to the workshop where Robert built our first dining table, where he carved my name into the leg before painting over it. That was where everything in our marriage began, our home, our family, our life. I stared at the key for a long time, torn between curiosity and fear. What could possibly be waiting for me after all these years? And why, of all things, would he ask me to keep it from our sons, Adam and Lucas? The wind rattled the kitchen window. Something deep inside me, instinct, maybe told me that Robert had left this not as a memory, but as a message. So I took my coat, wrapped the note in a napkin, and whispered to the empty room, "All right, Robert. Let's see what you've left me this time." Then I walked toward the old workshop at the edge of the property, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. The workshop door groaned when I pushed it open, releasing a faint scent of varnish, sawdust, and time. The space hadn't changed much since Robert's last project. His tools were still lined neatly on the pegboard, their outlines faded behind them like ghosts. A coffee mug sat on the counter, rim-stained and dusty, as if he might return at any moment to take another sip. I stood there for a long minute, letting the memories settle. This was where we spent our early years together, him building, me painting the finished pieces. It felt like stepping into a photograph that refused to fade. In the far corner, beneath a drop cloth, I noticed a small wooden chest, darker, heavier, and newer than everything else in the room. My pulse quickened. I knelt down, brushed away a thin layer of dust, and there it was, the same R engraved on the brass lock, matching the key Robert had left me. When the lock clicked open, a sharp scent of cedar filled the air. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, a folded map, and another envelope addressed simply, "For Evelyn, when you are ready." My fingers shook as I opened it. "Follow the map," the letter read. "Go alone. Don't trust anyone, not even Adam and Lucas. This isn't about money. It's about what's yours." I blinked hard, trying to process those words. My sons. Not trustworthy. Robert had adored them. Or at least I thought he did. I unfolded the map. It showed the edges of our property, but the lines extended past the boundaries I knew. There was a mark, an X, deep in the hills behind the orchard, an area I'd never explored. For a moment, I considered calling one of the boys. But something about Robert's tone, the way he wrote "Don't trust anyone," made me stop. I tucked the map and journal into my coat pocket and looked around one last time. The workshop was silent except for the faint hum of wind through the cracks. "All right," I whispered, "I'll go find it, Robert, whatever it is." The morning after, the air carried that crisp bite that only early autumn in Vermont can offer. I followed the path behind the orchard, the map gripped tightly in my hand. The sun climbed slowly over the ridge, setting the dew on the grass sparkling like glass. Each step brought back memories of Robert's laughter echoing across the fields as he taught our boys to ride their bikes, long before distance and ambition hardened them. The trail wound upward through the trees, the ground soft with fallen leaves. According to the map, the spot wasn't far, just beyond the ridge where the apple trees gave way to pine. I kept going until I saw something that made me stop cold. There, hidden behind a line of old stone fences, was a small wooden gate covered in ivy. A weathered sign hung loosely on one nail. The words, barely visible, read, "The Valley of Evelyn." I pushed the gate open and the world seemed to change. Rows of lavender and gardenia stretched across the hillside, swaying gently in the wind. The colors violet, cream, and soft green looked like they'd been painted by hand. For a moment I couldn't breathe. It was beautiful, peaceful, almost sacred. At the center stood a tiny cabin, built from the same cedar Robert used for our furniture. I recognized his craftsmanship in every joint and curve. Inside, Sunlight poured through lace curtains onto a small table. On it sat another envelope, along with a photo of Robert and me from our wedding day. The note read, "This is your gift. A place where the noise of the world can't reach you. But there's something else you must know." Underneath the letter lay a manila folder official documents stamped and notarized. I expected to see my name, but instead the property deed listed someone else, owner of record, Clara Whitman. The name meant nothing to me. Confusion tightened in my chest. Why would Robert leave me a sanctuary and then give it to another woman? The wind outside picked up, rustling the lavender. I looked out the window toward the valley and whispered, "Who are you, Clara Whitman, and what do you have to do with my husband?" That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the name on the deed, the letters blurring under the soft light of my reading lamp. Clara Whitman. Who was she? A lawyer? A friend? Or something worse? By morning, I'd made up my mind. I drove into town and found her address at the local records office. She lived less than 5 miles away, in a small cottage on the edge of Millbrook. The place looked quiet, almost too quiet, like someone trying not to be noticed. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, mid-40s, kind eyes but guarded posture. "Mrs. Carter?" she asked softly, as if she'd been expecting me. "I found your name on a deed my husband left behind," I said, holding up the folder. "Can you tell me why?" Clara hesitated before stepping aside. "You'd better come in." Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paint thinner. On her table lay sketches of lavender fields, blueprints, and legal folders. She poured me tea, then took a deep breath. "Robert trusted me," she began. "I worked for him the last 2 years of his life. He hired me to help restore the valley and handle certain legal matters." "What kind of matters?" I asked. Clara slid a thin binder toward me. Inside were photocopies, emails, financial records, even transcripts of meetings. My sons' names appeared repeatedly. Adam Carter, Lucas Carter. They'd been negotiating with a development firm to sell the valley's mineral rights months before Robert's death. And worse, they'd discussed filing for guardianship over me, claiming I was mentally declining. My throat tightened. They were going to take everything. Clara nodded. "Robert found out. He transferred the land to me under a trust to protect it and you." I sank back in my chair, cold spreading through me. The man I'd loved had seen the storm coming, and I'd been blind to it. "Mrs. Carter," Clara said quietly, "your husband wanted you to have a choice. But first you had to know the truth." I drove home that afternoon in silence, the road a blur of orange leaves and fading sunlight. The valley's beauty now felt tainted, every lavender stem shadowed by betrayal. My sons, my own flesh and blood, had planned to strip away everything their father and I had built. By evening, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the old family portrait that hung above the mantel. Robert's arm rested around my shoulders, Adam and Lucas smiling on either side. We looked so certain of ourselves then, like nothing could shake us. The phone rang. It was Adam. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, his tone rehearsed. "Lucas and I think it's time you consider letting us help with the property. It's too much for you to handle alone." I almost laughed. "You mean you want control?" There was a pause. "No, Mom, we just don't want you making mistakes. We're thinking about your future." "My future?" I said quietly. "Or your inheritance?" Silence. Then he sighed. "We'll come by tomorrow. You'll see this is for the best." The next afternoon they arrived with their lawyer, a slick man in a tailored suit, carrying a stack of documents. He spoke smoothly about protective guardianship and financial safety. I listened, my hands folded neatly in my lap. When he finished, I looked at both my sons. "Did your father ever tell you why he trusted me with everything?" They exchanged glances. "Because you were married to him," Lucas said flatly. "No," I said, "because he knew I'd never sell what we built." Their lawyer pushed a paper toward me. "All you need to do is sign here, Mrs. Carter." I stood slowly. My voice was calm, steady. "You've already tried to sell the land. I know about the meetings, the bank transfers, the plan to have me declared incompetent. And I know who helped you." Adam's face went pale. "Who told you that?" "Your father," I said. "From beyond the grave, apparently." No one spoke. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. Finally, I slid the papers back across the table. "You've both made your choices. Now it's my turn." I walked out, leaving them speechless in their father's house. That evening, Clara arrived at my house holding a small USB drive, and a look that told me whatever was on it would change everything. She set it down on the kitchen table, next to the half-finished cup of tea I hadn't touched since morning. "Robert told me to give this to you if things ever went wrong," she said quietly. "He wanted you to see the truth for yourself." I hesitated. My hands felt cold against the metal. When I plugged it into my laptop, a single video file appeared dated 2 months before Robert's death. I clicked play. There he was. My husband sitting in his workshop, face older, eyes tired but steady. "If you're watching this, Evelyn," he began, then I didn't get the chance to explain everything. His voice cracked slightly. "Before I met you, I wasn't just Robert Carter. I was someone else, part of a federal witness protection program. Back in the 70s, I testified against a smuggling ring that funneled weapons through private land. When it fell apart, they buried the evidence literally. Some of it ended up under the property we bought." I sat frozen. "The valley you found," he continued, "isn't just a garden. Beneath it lies a sealed vault containing documents and hardware from that case. If unearthed, it could implicate people still alive. That's why I built the trust to keep the land safe, out of reach of anyone who might sell it, including our sons." He swallowed hard. "I love them, Evelyn, but they're ambitious, too trusting of strangers. You must protect the valley, and if the wrong people come for it, go to Father Martin. He knows everything." The video ended abruptly, leaving a hollow silence. I stared at the dark screen, my reflection pale in the glass. The valley wasn't just a symbol of love. It was a secret Robert had carried for decades, one that could still destroy lives. When I finally spoke, my voice came out in a whisper. "You didn't build a garden, Robert. You built a shield." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm had only just begun. The next morning, rain poured over Millbrook, blurring the edges of the hills into gray watercolor. I drove to St. Matthew's Church, the only place Robert ever truly called sacred. The wooden doors creaked as I pushed them open, and the smell of wax and cedar filled the air. Father Martin stood near the altar, polishing the chalice. When he saw me, his expression softened, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Evelyn," he said gently, "I was wondering when you'd come." I told him everything: the key, the valley, the video. He listened in silence, eyes steady but full of knowing. When I finished, he nodded and walked toward the confessional booth. From behind a loose panel, he pulled out a thick brown envelope sealed with wax. "Robert left this here a week before he passed," Father Martin said. "He told me it might save you one day." Inside were certified copies of government records, Robert's real name, his witness testimony, and sealed FBI documents confirming every word from the video. There was even a letter addressed to me, in Robert's hand. "If anyone ever questions your sanity, show them this. The truth will protect you as long as faith does." Before I could respond, the sound of tires skidding outside made me turn. Through the stained glass window, I saw Adam and Lucas stepping out of a black SUV, their lawyer following close behind with a briefcase. "They're here," I whispered. Father Martin gave a small nod. "Then it's time." When they entered the church, ready to confront me again, the father didn't say a word. He simply turned on the old projector in the corner and Robert's face appeared on the wall, speaking the same truth I'd seen the night before. The silence that followed was absolute. The storm raged outside, but inside that church, only one sound remained: the quiet collapse of certainty in my sons' hearts. The video ended, and for a long moment no one moved. The rain hammered against the stained glass windows, casting fractured colors across the floor. Adam's face had gone pale. Lucas stared at the flickering image of his father as if trying to find a lie somewhere inside it. But there was none. Their lawyer broke the silence first, clearing his throat nervously. "Mrs. Carter, this is highly irregular. These are old documents, none of this." Father Martin cut him off, his voice calm but firm. "These documents are verified. I've already contacted the local field office. The FBI is on their way." At that, Adam's composure cracked. "Mom, we didn't know, we thought the land was valuable. We didn't know what was buried there." "I didn't know," I repeated softly, "but you were willing to have me declared incompetent to get it." Lucas stepped forward, eyes glistening. "We were scared. You were alone. We thought someone would take advantage of you." I looked at them both, their suits, their worried faces, their guilt that came too late. "Someone did," I said. "It just wasn't me." Outside, 2 black SUVs pulled up. Men in dark coats entered quietly, one of them flashing a badge. Mrs. Carter. Agent Freeman, we'll need to secure the property immediately. As they escorted the lawyer away, the boys stood frozen in the doorway. For the first time in years, they looked small like the children who once ran through those same pews during Sunday service. I took a slow breath. Your father didn't build that valley for wealth. He built it to protect all of us. And now it's your turn to protect what he left behind. Adam wiped his eyes. Lucas nodded silently. That was the first time in months they didn't argue back. For once, they listened. And for the first time in years, I felt Robert's presence not in the wind, not in the valley, but in the quiet strength of knowing the truth had finally done its work. Weeks passed before the valley felt peaceful again. The investigation closed quietly, with federal agents sealing the underground vault Robert had once guarded with his silence. The headlines never mentioned our names, and that was exactly how I wanted it. The land was transferred into a conservation trust, ensuring no one could ever dig it up or sell it again. Clara helped finalize the paperwork, then hugged me at the gate. He would be proud, she said softly. Sometimes I walk through the rows of lavender just before sunset. The air smells sweet the way it did when Robert first planted them. The hills glow gold, and I imagine him standing beside me, smiling that patient smile of his. My sons visit more often now. They bring groceries, fix the fence, stay long enough for coffee and apologies. We don't talk much about the past. Some wounds don't need words to heal. I forgive them not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. As I sit on the porch, watching the wind move through the valley, I finally understand what Robert meant in his last note. You'll understand when you see it. He hadn't built a hiding place. He'd built a lesson, one that love sometimes requires silence. That truth is a heavier gift than gold, and that forgiveness is the last form of revenge worth giving. If you believe that too, then share this story, leave a comment, and tell me what would you have done in my place?